Yeah, I missed my cutoff point and ended up with a couple of minutes, so I had to do a video compilation or concatenation, but it's annoying because it re-encodes the whole thing, so it's not just gluing it together. I think Blender is the way to do that, but I don't really want to hunt down another program. Alright. Plus, I tied my hair back, so I'm not, and the rest helped because I was beginning to drip sweat. It's hot here again. Alright, we're on to the Destiny action. Now, what this does is you're allowed to discard your cards from your hand, and then you fill your hand back out to 6 cards. Now, at the beginning of the game, I think you start with a 7-card hand, but it looks like normally the most you're going to end up with usually is 6. Now that's an action that you can use instead of starting a new empire as your extra action when you have not enough empires. So at the beginning of the game, if you're not sure you're going to be allowed to start an empire, you may want to think about putting a destiny marker down or your wildcard marker so that you could go either way. We'll see how the wildcard works. I think we may have to go back because the rules are back there. Civilized. Alright, this allows you to do a whole bunch of different things here. So event cards, you can play them as an event. Now some of them will say on them that you can play them at any time. So this, for example, or at a specific time, this says play at the start of your turn. You don't have to actually pick a civilized action to use that one. But otherwise, you take the event there. Assassin events allow you to kill another player. Okay, artifact cards. The artifact is going to be the band in the middle of the card. And that has certain eras that it's allowed to be played in. If the target empire is in the right era, you can play it. Industrial Revolution and World War can be played earlier under certain conditions indicated by a little cross after them, and I don't see that. And an asterisk on this one. But you see, it doesn't explain what that asterisk means here, so maybe in some sort of compendium it's going to explain it. Yeah, some artifacts require prerequisites to be satisfied to be played. This is indicated by an asterisk after the artifact name. Not sure where you're going to find that. Presumably, like I said, in somewhere in details here. Let's see if we can find it fairly easily. There's this whole player's guide. I mean, basically, you use less than half the book. So we're looking here for Hinduism. And these are luckily in alphabetical order. Marker on card, ignore adverse effects of other religions, +1. Prerequisite, no religion, Indian land area. So that would be required to even play that. Alright. You can't play an artifact if that artifact's marker is already on the map or on the progress track. Now, again, I'm not sure where these markers are. These have disorder on the back of them. These appear to be the markers for the various progress options. And some of them will go on the map, some of them go on the track. You can play it on an empire taking the civilized action or another empire within range, C3. Well, oddly enough, there aren't numbers in this rule book. Do they mean page 3? There is not a section 3, I'll say that much. Page 3 doesn't seem to define it. There is another rule that has range. Maybe that's what it means, the trade range. Maybe not. Oh, wait, no. Hold on. Oh, no, that's the trade range. The when is an empire within range? So, whatever that range is, we don't know what it is. Maybe it's over here. And we'll flip through the actions and see if that's explained. Artifact cards may be played on any empire, not just those within range, by any empire or non-empire. Delete the... Oh, God. Okay. Great. And then I see something about... that seems to also go against everything else in here. Red artifacts can only be placed if its counter is not already in play, which sounds like what was up with all artifacts a little moment ago, right? So you have to look in the player's guide to see where it ends up going. It'll either go on land or on the Empire card. An artifact marker stays on the map until the Empire loses the area, or the Empire controlling the area advances past the latest age on the marker, or if the artifact's removed by a card. Some artifacts may have a blue marker to place on the progress track as well. Blue artifact markers on the progress track will never be removed. It goes on the track 7 spaces ahead of the Empire, minus the age the Empire is in. The Empire, so for example, if I'm in age 1, it'll be 6 spaces above. If I'm in age 7, it starts in my space. The Empire with the artifact and any empires that are at or above the blue marker have the artifact for any benefits and penalties that it provides, and that will also allow it to satisfy prerequisites for other artifacts. The color on the artifact card tells you what color the artifact's going to be. So this is a green one, this is a blue one. An empire taking a civilized action can demote one of its leaders, remove named leaders from the game, return unnamed leaders to the cup. You may want to demote a leader if you're at your maximum number of leaders already and you have a better leader that you could receive. Whenever the empire moves into a different age, and I'm guessing that can only happen during the civilized stage. Otherwise, this rule is in a really stupid place, but that wouldn't shock me either. And that's the idea that the empire, the person reflected on the empire card or by the chit is fairly old. And they say 1,000 years, but you know, this is less than 100 here, so obviously it depends on the era you're in. Like in Civilization, the game starts off taking the eras end up being longer, or in History of the World for that matter. You can also promote a leader if you have less than your total number on your card. You could demote one to promote another. If you have a named leader for the age, you can promote that leader, but only one. Each named leader can only, and I'm guessing this only happens as part of Civilize. The remove and promote leaders are action specific there. Each leader is only allowed once per game. There are some unnamed leaders. If you want to promote one of them, you randomly pick one from the cup, and then you can return it to the cup if you don't like it, or if it's a no leader counter, you must. And then you're allowed to pick again if you haven't already picked as many times as the leader number on the Empire's card. So for example, this has a leader number of 2 or 3 in age 3. I guess if you have a leader, you can pick once. If you don't like them, you can pick again. Same as if you don't have a leader. That it doesn't matter what the difference in the value is. But you can't pick any unless you have a free slot. You may adopt a religion or a government. If an empire that has a religion or government, and I don't know what these are, I'm assuming they're advances, is within range of your empire can adopt that religion or government during a civilized action. You can't change an existing religion or government if any of your area of your empire is disordered. Changing is different from adopting, though. You can't adopt both a religion and a government in the same action. You put a marker for the religion or government on the empire's card and discard any existing religion or government as appropriate. Apply the results to the of the religion or government artifact, including earning a glory point because the marker is a green artifact. Somewhere maybe we'll have a list of where you get all your glory points. The empire can now exercise the benefits and suffers the penalties of the religion or government. So far we haven't seen anything that gave you glory, but now we've got a hint of something. If you discard a religion or government to adopt another, place a disorder marker in every undisordered area of the empire containing a city or a leader. And sometimes an empire can adopt Confucianism in a maneuver phase. See Player's Guide. Well, that's something you just have to remember, I guess. Maybe. Okay, prerequisite. So there's nothing there that says anything about it. I guess some of the things in the Player's Guide are elsewhere. Okay, there's nothing here in this whole terms of play. That's no big shock. How about under artifacts? Well, there we go. An empire that takes control of a land area from a Confucian empire can convert to Confucianism immediately. You know, I mean, this is going to be tricky because you've got several pages of artifacts and they're not all summarized, or effects or whatever, and they're not all summarized accurately enough on this single sheet here. Of course, maybe this is a special case, but you don't see that ability here as listed in this artifact summary. So basically you have to be aware of all of the artifacts, at least the ones that you have in your hand or in play. Okay. Let's keep going. Modernizing. If you've reached sufficient progress level to build a particular unit type, you can turn over on-map units to upgrade them to the newer type. So only if they have it on their other side, the newer type, does it appear that you can do that. You could also downgrade if you wish, and they suggest that like a bomber could convert to a fighter. Urbanizing, you can build or improve cities, either in 2 fertile areas or 1 other area, unless you have the no city symbol. You can only have one city marker in any given area. And the level at which you're allowed cities is indicated here. So level 1 cities can start the game, level 3 in the second era, level 5 comes out in the 4th era, and level 7 doesn't show up until the very end. You place a level 1 city in a land area of the empire you control. To improve a city, you increase the city by 1 level, 1 to 3, 3 to 5. Yeah, I know that's confusing, but again, they don't bother to explain that. A city can only be, the ages. The first city an empire builds will be its capital. You have to use the correct marker for this. An empire with a builder can build or improve an extra city during the same civilized action. The extra city must be in the area the leader occupies, and it can't be a city already built or improved in the action. If an empire has no capital, it can convert a city it controls into a capital by replacing the counter with a capital of the same level. This is in addition to any builds you might make. And then you're able to remove disorder markers. They're going to cost you 7 of your cash each. You don't make cash on a civilized action, so you kind of have to be careful to make that choice. Okay. Now, most of this has been discussed within the context of your action choice, which are all selected at the same time and then resolved in order, if need be, done by player order as well. After all empires have finished their actions, increase each empire's progress level by 1 unless it's in a dark age or took a wild card action. All right, let's talk about the wild cards for a minute, because they have a couple of penalties. The wild card can be played like any other action marker. It'll be turned over during the action and convert into the action to convert into an action of that type. What type? Any type you like, okay? The point at which you turn it over is what determines what kind of action you picked. You can do this even if you've already used that action this turn. You will not get this free progress at the end of the turn. And if you do the same action twice in a turn, you're going to lose a glory point for doing so. So an extra little penalty bad. Now we go to harvesting glory. Now I guess because the free progress, again, there's no sequence of play here defined, nicely laid out, but because the free progress is talking about stuff that happens after the empire, that you will be collecting this after that free progress. Each empire now earns glory for its player according to the glory section on its card. Well, the glory section on its card is down here, and it's going to give you a set of pictures. Pictures are hard to read, but these cards are busy enough that there really isn't room for more. You have to match certain categories to get that, and the categories are going to be listed here. So for example, Islam is a category that you might have glory for, and this has an Islam glory with a 3. What does that number mean? Well, if the number is 1, it means you only get a glory point if you're the top empire of that condition, whatever that means. What does it mean to be the top Islam empire? Well, I don't know exactly. If the number is 2, you get 2 glory points if you're in the lead for that condition, and 1 if you're second. If the number is 3, you get 3 if you're the leading empire, 2 if you're second, and 1 if you're third. Okay, so that seems possible maybe to understand for, I don't know, number of artifacts or sea areas. I think this one says, this one's land and sea areas anywhere in the world. So if you're in the top 2 people there, you'll get some points. And that's going to be a pain in the ass to calculate at all times. Kind of reminds me of dominant species, but hopefully people won't be too worried about it, because unlike dominant species, you're just aiming for something. You're not going to be able to change it constantly, I think. But I have no idea what Islam means. It may mean the most land and sea areas that are under Islam. That's kind of what I'm getting from that. But it's not absolutely clear. Homeland, well, that's for controlling your homeland, but we'll have to see if there's an explanation of that as well. Okay, if people tie, the person whose turn it is or the person closest to the first player, yeah, there are no turns, but the person who has the turn marker is the person who breaks the tie in terms of order. So the person who went earliest in the turn. All empires count, and your own can cost you glory by stopping your other empires from achieving a condition. The highest total city value, you're going to add up all the points on all the cities, 1, 3s, 5s, 7s, whatever. Some glory comes by having the most of particular units. This resource icons won't include a number. You get 1 glory for each resource of that type you control. Elephant areas are only counted if no empire is in age 7. Oil is only counted in age 7. When counting areas, you don't count disordered areas. You only count as controlling... Empires only count as controlling desert or tundra areas if the special section of their card specifically says so. And now we got to kind of read here. Cavalry. Deserts count in harvest and glory. Okay. I don't know. Is harvest income? Or is it something else? Shh. Okay, I guess it's harvesting glory, and here they changed it to harvest glory. Okay, that's fine. I thought there was an ampersand in there, and that wouldn't make a lot of sense. So some empires have to worry about competing in certain regions, as we saw here. The world marker. Well, here the Islam marker, but I don't know what that's going to mean. We'll see if that gets any further explained. So some European empires gain glory. Now this is just a special rule for this, and I assume it has no effect on anything else that's like it. Some European empires earn glory for controlling the most exclusively non-European areas. They must have their capital in Europe and only compare themselves to other empires with the capital in Europe. Many empires have a house. This gives you one glory point if you control your starting area, but you lose one if you don't control any of them. You have to control all of your starting areas. Then, if you have Renaissance, well, we don't know what Renaissance is. Is it this level, or is it a special ability? You know, it could be both. I mean, obviously that era is called the Renaissance, but maybe there's some special ability that's called Renaissance too. And you cannot trust these rules to do you a damn bit of good. There is a Renaissance artifact, so that's what it is referring to, not being in this time zone. It's really surprising how much time this game went through development for the condition that it's in. It shocks me. We're not talking about someone who doesn't know how to write rules and design a game. This isn't the first shot or a Games Workshop piece of crap. All right, let's keep looking here. So if you have Renaissance, you can buy glory by spending shit. Yeah, we're going to have to reset the map again. Luckily, nothing's on it. $20. Otherwise, you can pay $50 for it. And you have to do this before working out your icon glory points. I think what that means is that someone has to start shouting la 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 really loud if anybody starts looking at one of these, just to make sure that nobody can think and can't calculate what their values are. I don't know how that's supposed to be done. All the information's open to calculate your points. I'm not sure how, you can reasonably do it, but certainly somebody starts counting them. You can say, no, wait, are you paying or not? Or, I'm sorry, you started counting, it's too late. Or some kind of attitude like that. But it is kind of an annoying type of rule. Event cards and glory points. Some event cards will modify the glory points that you get. I'm not too worried about that. Glory conditions. Glory conditions in square icons. Get glory immediately when the condition is reached. Well, I don't see any examples. One per land. There's one. One per land liberated from a more advanced empire of another player. So that'll give you an example of what those might look like. They don't say one glory. They just, yeah. And presumably there is an indication of that in this little thing that should be a separate player aid, because you're going to be looking at it all the time through the rules when you try to figure it out. Then the turn ends, and the turn marker goes to the left. Now, there's some optional rules to this game, and I want to talk a little bit about these, at least what my understanding is, but I don't think I'm going to play any of them. Yeah. Okay, total history. The first empire played must be an Age 1 empire. This one really appeals to me. I hate the idea of this thing starting and somebody slapping down like an age 6 or something, and I get. It would explain why the length of play is like 7 minutes and greater. You know? Pursuit. If your units retreat from combat, you lose 2 units for each aircraft your opponent has. That sounds reasonable, but you know, I don't want to deal with this. And cav and stuff can cause this pursuit. Might all make some sense. Cadence progress. So this is the weirdest one. Once everybody places their action markers, the person... okay, once everyone has placed their action markers at the start of the turn, that player... What? Which player? Well, we assume it's the first player, but, you know, again, no eye for detail in these rules. It's like nobody tried to read the game and understand it from the rules. As I said, it really reminds me of Eklund. Places 1, 2, or 3 of these cadence markers, their choice, face down on the boxes on the go slow section. Now, what these are going to do is they're going to be certain picks. So, like, if you take, I don't know, a trade in progress as your action for a particular empire, and somebody put trade in progress in the go slow, you wouldn't get your automatic advance for that. And then these others are only if there's certain things in play here, and these don't make much sense to me. The first cadence marker must go in the no advance. The second one goes into the advance of trade +1. Okay, let's see how these go. Then you turn them over. Empires that chose the same action as the marker and the none may advance don't get their free advance. Empires that chose the same action as the advance if trade +1 or more get it only if their modified trade number is +1 or higher. So you'd have to figure out what their trade number would be. Now their trade number, I think, is just off of here. If we go to the trade section, we can see what that means, but we're not playing with this crap. This game is too hard anyway to understand it. So normally you have a card drawn when you do trade. My feeling is this can be modified, probably. And then likewise with the 0 or more. If an empire being discarded is affected by go slow, then no empires belonging to that player will advance. Because you wouldn't get a penalty for discard otherwise. If one of those empires is affected by another go slow, it goes backwards 1 level. Technology, normally the maximum number of cards each player can hold is 6. But if the empire chose Destiny and it's the most advanced empire in the game, they can fill their hand up to 7. If the least advanced empire, they can only fill their hand to 5. It doesn't really make a whole hell of a lot of sense to me. Well, it gives a penalty and a bonus for having your leader there. We don't really know how the game ends yet. That's kind of funny. Oh. Well, here's a faster way to end the game. After all hands have been dealt during the preparing for play, this is redemption. Each player can basically discard their hand if they don't like their initial hand. I'll give you a mulligan. Faster history, the game ends immediately if an empire ends the age higher than the starting age of the first empire played. Well, we better see how you end the game normally. Okay, and then there's this take that cards. You may only play artifact and event cards on empires within range of the empire taking the action. If no empire is civilizing the card... I don't even understand what this one's about. I'm not even going to try to figure it out. I couldn't figure it out before. So, when does the game end? So this much we know. The winner is the player with the most glory points when the game ends. If there's a tie, the player with the most advanced empire wins. I assume out of the tied players, because it says, or first to progress to at least the 49th progress level if more than one empire has. If still equal, they both win. I mean, this is the kind of sentence structure, man. Nobody should be allowed to write rules if they write that way. The game ends at the end of the turn when the empire progresses beyond the 49th progress level, or when an empire acquires the internet, because obviously the internet's going to destroy the world. That player gains 7 bonus points, being so illustrious. Or the game can end whenever. All right. Again, you know, I felt like I had a vague idea. I feel like my vague idea has come a little bit more solid. We'll give this a shot. It'll be more useful to watch the playthrough and my blundering through that than my blundering through the rolls. All right.